Let's talk a little bit about the water bags and the purpose of these tools. So one of the things that the research has been showing with water bags is it's actually going to be more of a skill-based movement to prime your body before the throwing or before any work begins. So there's a concept and term out there called proprioception, and that's your body's ability to sense its position, movement, and action in space. So with the water bag and the water resistance, it's really going to teach you how to deviate your center mass or understand your relationship with gravity. So that's why this is going to be more of a primer to your central nervous system. So think about when we're on the mound, right? The mound has a slope and it has gravity pulling us down. So that's why a tool like this could be beneficial for an athlete if they have a hard time with their awareness in space, with their awareness with gravity, their awareness with their own relationship. So it can help with that central nervous system to prime it to get ready to move at a high rate. Now, there's also been tests though that are being done that a water bag, right, it's going to be constant. It's not going to, you can't progress the weight, or at least you could fill this up, but over time you're only going to be capped at a certain amount of weight with this ball. So you're not really necessarily creating any adaptations or any progressive overload. So this is going to be more of a skill based, and that's why when you're looking at pitching, right, there's two components to pitching, and there's these two components towards any type of athletic skill or movement involved. There's the skill acquisition to this, and then there's the strength and conditioning and the force and the power that we have to create. And so that's why a water bag tool could be beneficial for an athlete if they're stronger than the forces of gravity that is being placed on their body. So that's why for beginners, right, this isn't a tool, or the longer bag, this isn't a tool that made Paul Skeens. All right, so I'm just throwing that out there, right? Paul Skeens wasn't built by water bags. He uses it to prime his body. If you guys watch Paul Skeens warm up in the clip next, you're going to see that he uses this on the mound before he even throws. So that's why it's actually priming and prepping your central nervous system to build the awareness in space, because as athletes, right, we're playing on multiple dimensions, different type of fields. So mounds are going to have more of a deeper slope, more of a flatter surface. So a tool like this could just help us prime. So overall though, a tool like this or the water bag, it could be useful. So the other piece to this though is we have to be more aware though how we're using this. So even when we're using this guy, right, we still have to keep the proper mechanics in place, right? We can't create bad habits with these. So that's why we can't get too technical with how our mechanics look with this, because at the end of the day, two hands are on this and we're not doing the normal throw. So that's why this is more of a primer. But with like a tool like this one, like the biggest mistake that I'll see guys make with this is when they put this on their back, right, we have to understand, right, what the shoulders are doing. So when you see pitchers throw, you're going to see pitchers dump like this when they're doing these water bags. They're dumping like this. Now, if we understand biomechanics, right, and we understand how mechanics and us throwing, we're never going to be throwing a ball like this. Okay, so one, it's just it's that awareness in space. We got to be aware of these proper movements. So when you're using that water bag, you always want to think about taking the shoulder and snapping more down this way. So I'll see a lot of younger athletes who need to keep building the foundational strength to control their body to then naturally enhance their mechanics. They need to just be more aware of how they're using this tool, because a water bag is a tool. Okay, it doesn't create or make an elite athlete like Paul Skeens. It's a tool, and it can be used for priming the central nervous system. So when athletes are using this, we can't be dumping and dropping. Now, if you're a hitter, sure, there could be some benefits to that, but as pitchers, we just got to be more aware. All right, we can't have the shoulder drop and drag, because now you're creating bad habits. We got to stay up in the top. That's why, like here at BSF, we'll utilize overload underload approach with our med ball programming. So our overload approach is with primers, like a 4, 6, or an 8-pound med ball, right? We break the days up into rotational and linear days, and then we go into the 2-pound med ball. Now with a 2-pound med ball, 2 hands are still on it, but you're teaching lower half and trunk mechanics. So when I'm throwing that med ball, I don't want to be dropping and dipping and throwing the ball like that, because I've created a movement pattern with the water bag. I want to keep the med ball here and think about snapping this shoulder over down this way, like I'm chopping down to screw my rotation into the front hip. So that's why the water bag tools could be really useful to just develop the proper movement, the proper skill, the proper sequencing, if we're doing it right. That's why you have to understand your own relationship with gravity, because when we're throwing, right, and we're going through all of these different motions throughout the throwing mechanics, our brain and our body is recruiting these motor units. Like we're controlling and contracting all different type of muscles to stabilize our body moving down the mound, to handle gravity, to make sure we're stabilizing all three planes of motion that pitchers get into: the sagittal plane, frontal plane, and transverse plane. And that's why it's so important that when we're utilizing tools like this, we're just doing them right. So that's the biggest mistake that I'll just see younger athletes make. They see something on social media and they just want to hurry up and buy this tool, and then they're just starting to use it thinking that it's going to create an adaptation. But we got to understand, what is an adaptation? That's something that you can progress and progressively overload throughout time to keep getting stronger, to keep developing, but you're capped at a certain weight with water. So this is going to be more of a primer, and it's going to help your body's ability to develop the proper relationship and the awareness through space. Okay, so this is the whole entire point of this video, is just to demonstrate why do we utilize water bags, or why some athletes should and shouldn't. Now again, this isn't objective, meaning every athlete needs to use this. It's subjective based on the individual. That's why you got to know who your individuals are. Some guys will benefit from it, some guys won't. I would say the guys that won't benefit from any of this are the guys that are just really weaker than their own forces of gravity that's being placed on their body, that can't even handle their own body weight. So we got to develop the skill first in proper movements in the weight room, develop the foundational strength, develop the proper mobility, develop the power, and utilize just normal med ball training before we can really start to understand and enhance a specific skill, right, in place. Which again, if you're a stronger guy like a Paul Skeens, right, he has a good understanding of how his own body moves, because he understands how to find his path of least resistance, which is why he can benefit from a water bag to prime that central nervous system. And it's just a tool. You don't see every single major league pitcher using them, right? So again, it works for Paul Skeens. He likes it. It feels good, but that doesn't mean every single athlete out there needs to do it. So again, that's the downfall to social media and these and all the things that people are putting out there. Oh, look at Paul Skeens pre-throw warm. Look at what he does. This is what he does to get him to throw 100. No, it's not the case. You guys are literally missing all the years of development that has taken him to get to that level. And plus, he's 6'6", 240, 260 some pounds, right? He had to work even harder to develop the strength to control that amount of mass in that big of a body. Because again, the taller you are, the farther you're away from your base of support. So you got to do a much better job at controlling your body through gravity, through space. So that's why, again, he works so hard to develop that foundational strength where he can start using tools like this to benefit him. So again, this is just for the athletes that are trying to understand what are the water bags for? What could they be beneficial for? So again, when you're using the tidal tank is, again, it's a sphere. So it's going to hold your center mass. It can help with core stabilization and core stability, which is good, right? But again, at the same time, this is going to be a tool to help prime your central nervous system, because it's going to do a good job at emphasizing that proprioception. Like I said before, it's your body's ability to sense its action, position, and movement in space, and that's what these tools are for. It's to help prime your central nervous system and to get it ready to then prepare for that workload that's coming ahead, which is the throwing. So this is a little intro on like some of the water bags, why guys like to use it, but again, why it's also not for everybody.